Okay, hello and welcome. I'm Jason Gumper from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and thanks for joining us for today's Dynamics AX educational event presented by IBIS. Today we're joined by Jeremy Sentner, an AX solution architect at IBIS, who joined us back in October, and that makes him a returning speaker today, so we're really glad to have him back. As we get into this event, please know that we do invite you in the audience to add your feedback and ask questions during today's event. We also have a poll that I'm just going to open right now to help kind of get things started and give Jeremy a better idea of who in the audience is working on which versions of Dynamics AX right now. So we'll leave that open for just about 30 seconds as we get going here. Jeremy will be making time for questions at the end as well. You can enter those into the Q&A block that you should see to the right of the main presentation window. At any point during the presentation, he'll be making time at the end for those. So without further delay, Jeremy, let me hand things off to you.
Welcome everybody to the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. Jason, if you can let me know if you can see that, I'd appreciate it.
We do see it.
Okay, so as Jason stated, this is streamlining the sales process in Dynamics AX from quotes to order management. And a little about myself is I've been working in Dynamics AX for the last 5 or so years, implemented 8 end-to-end AX 2012 implementations, and really focused my efforts in the trade and logistics areas. Worked in a number of verticals from retail, manufacturing, and distribution. And I work for a company called I.B.I.S, and this slide will update for me. I'll tell you a little bit about I.B.I.S. So we are a Microsoft Gold certified partner, recently acquired by Sonata, so that's very exciting for us. We specialize in AX and CRM implementations with a very strong focus in supply chain and distribution verticals. So the objectives of today's webinar are first defining a sales process in AX, optimizing order management, understanding sales quotes, understanding sales orders, as well as defining the order-to-cash lifecycle. So our agenda is as follows. We're going to start off with process optimization, moving into sales quotes, processing those sales quotes into sales orders, and then, again, defining that order-to-cash lifecycle and what exactly that means. So what is a sales process in AX? It can be described as a phased or organized approach to your sales pipeline or your sales process, starting with an opportunity and tracking different meetings, tasks, and actions to ultimately close the opportunity and win the business. As you can see here, you can create a customized process to fit your specific business. Now what's nice about this is you can create multiple different processes for your different types of opportunities. And you can also create specific tasks, meetings, and actions that are either required and or have specific people responsible for these activities. A great way to track and organize the sales flow. You can also expedite the sales process through the opportunities by creating alerts to let people know when certain tasks are completed, as well as always have visibility into seeing what the next stage of the process is. The nice thing about these processes is that you can also customize them on a per opportunity basis. So if you have a standard template that you want to utilize, but let's say you have a specific opportunity, you can create different types of meetings and tasks that fit that opportunity. Now to show this, we're going to go ahead and hop into the system, into Dynamics AX, and this is a 2012 R3 version, and what you'll see is I'm in the sales and marketing module first off. Under the setup area, there's some information around setting up a sales process. So I'll go in here and I'll go ahead and let you look at these 2 different ones that I have set up. The first one is what I call the standard process, and you can see there's kind of a tree structure that you can build out. So these are the different phases or stages that you can set up within the system. Underneath these phases and stages, you can actually set up different tasks. The tasks can vary from being a task that can be synced with Outlook, an appointment that can be synced with Outlook, an action or an event, and the action and events do not, unfortunately, be synced with Outlook. So what you can do is actually build these out in a hierarchy level and assign specific responsibilities, assign an exit criteria if you want, and also check if these are required. So if they're required activities, then it will actually force you to perform the actions before you can move on to the next step. Now here you can assign a responsibility and a person responsible for that, as well as a start and end date, so you can track our progress and whether we are on time, behind time, or ahead of schedule, which is always good. So we'll go ahead and create a new one, and let's just call it the fast track. And this is for good opportunities that we know are going to close relatively quickly. And as you can see, it starts to build out the hierarchy tree for me. And I can rename these with whatever I'd like. So initial meet and greet. And then again, I can assign responsibilities. If I want to create responsibilities, it's very easy to go into the table and actually specify which responsibilities we want to have show up in this area. Again, you have a responsible party, so you'll see a list of employees that you can select from. And then again, you have that exit criteria we spoke about before. Now, you don't have to set any of these up. It can be just a guide if you'd like it to be. And you can see my initial meet and greet note has now been created. And I can create an appointment underneath it if I'd like. And we'll call it initial lunch. So we're having a lunch meeting. Beyond that, you can create different levels and sub-levels within the tree structure. So you can really hierarchy and set these up really however you'd like and whatever fits your business the best. So now we're going to go over and see how these sales processes actually tie into opportunities. And to do that, we're going to stay in the sales and marketing module, and we're actually going to go under the common area under opportunities. So you'll see we have a list of opportunities that I've created in the past, but for this example, we'll create a new one. And we'll call it a trade show opportunity. We went to a trade show and got some leads and wanted to create some opportunities out of those. Now this next field here you'll see is name. Now this can either be a prospect or customer that already exists in the database itself, or if it does not, you can actually just free text in some information and that will create a prospect record in the background for you. For this example, I'm going to use my customer I've already created. And this is just basically a duplicate check that shows we already have somebody named this. Do we want to create a new organization or do we want to use one that's already existing? And we're going to use the existing record there. Owner, so we can fill out an owner. So what employee is responsible for this opportunity? Who collected it? And we use Al Bundy. And then we have a prognosis field. So the prognosis is telling us how long we think this opportunity is going to last until we close it. And for this one, we'll just do less than a month. And then under probability, you also have a percentage. So what is the likelihood that we are going to close this opportunity out? And we'll start off with a 40% probability. Sales unit is if you're using different sales units, you can set them up geographically or however you have your sales structure within your organization. And then below that, you'll see sales process. Now, this is what we were just setting up in the other table. So you'll see we have our fast track, we have our alternate, and we also have our standard process. For this example, I'm going to use the standard process. And once I refresh my screen, I'm going to see that now we have some highlighted features above. You have a sales process node, which will actually show you what the process looks like here. And again, you can customize these process tabs for this specific opportunity. So if I wanted to add some information here, I could create an alert on this node to let the next person in line know that my piece is done. I can create additional levels. I can create appointments, tasks, whatever have you. Now, the nice thing about this is, again, you can customize this as a per opportunity basis, and we can actually set these up each time differently if we'd like. For this, we'll go ahead and leave it as is, and I'll show you how we would move to the next stage. So when you see this change stage button here, you're going to see a list of all the different stages we're supposed to go through before our sales cycle is complete. Now, you can move through these if there's no required activity pretty easily by just changing the stage and clicking OK. As you can see, it gives us a little bit of an indicator that shows us which stage we're on and which stages have been completed. So I'm going to keep moving through it and act like we just went through and did a demo. So we are at the demonstration stage. Now, before I go into the actual sales quote after our demo, we're going to actually jump back into our slides and talk about expediting order entry. So a couple of key pieces of information to note here are you can actually speed up your order entry by using the system to your advantage. There's a couple of things you can do here. One would be utilizing default data fields. If you set up specific default data on either the customer record or the product form, those fields will actually push over onto the sales order for you. Thus, it's eliminating some fields that you have to enter on each sales order or sales quote. Some of these fields that might be helpful would be pricing information, would be sites, warehouses, and locations. Another thing that you could do would be personalizing forms. You can actually move fields around, add fields, and remove fields so that you're only seeing what's pertinent to you. This will help you focus on specific information and also expedite the order entry process. So what does this do? This sales process and sales process optimization will increase efficiency across the board. It will let everyone know from marketing through the sales organization where we're at in the process and what the likelihood is of us closing the opportunity with a win. So we're going to move into sales quotes next. But before I actually do a sales quote, I'd like to show you some of those default fields I was just referencing. Under the customer form, and I'll just do this really quickly, you will see that there is a FAST tab, which is called Sales Order Defaults. Now, this is all information that will actually push through onto sales quotes and sales orders if you have it set up correctly. The main ones that I'd like you to focus on are on the left side here, which are in regards to site, warehouse, charges, as well as discounts and pricing. So these things will all help you expedite process and also eliminate order entry errors. Very important and very good to help the organization process things quicker. Now, let's go back to our opportunity that we created here. And what we can actually do is create a sales quotation from this opportunity. If you remember, we were at the demonstration stage. So let's go ahead and move on to the quotation stage and create a new quote. Now, what you'll see here is that some of the information is defaulted in as we just spoke about. So you'll have the customer account number, the invoice account if it's different from the actual customer account will populate there for you as well, and the customer name, as well as the delivery address. If we open up the rest of these FAST tabs, we'll see we can actually select some other information like sites and warehouses. And as you can see, our mode of delivery defaulted in from our customer record as well. Now, one thing to note about this form is that anything you enter here is actually going to be passed on to the sales quote header as well as any of the lines that are on that sales quote. So when I clicked OK, now we actually go to a new form, and you'll see that it's the sales quotation form. Let me move this out of the way so you can see. There's a couple of things I'd like you to note here, in the fact that there is a header view and a line view, as well as a number of different actions up here at the top. One very important action would be copying. If you'd like to copy previous sales quotes, you can, and it kind of speeds up things as well. So these are all different options that allow you to optimize your sales process and get sales entered as quickly as possible. So from the header view, you'll see a number of things. The method of payment was defaulted in from the customer. The currency was defaulted from the customer record. And some of this information was actually defaulted from our opportunity. Let's go over and check out the line view. And as you can see, our site defaulted in from that original screen that we selected. And then you'll see that we also have item selection. And this is where you're actually going to start entering your items to quote. We'll just use this item for the time being. And when I talked about personalizing the form, I'll show you a quick example of how to do that. You can either hide fields by right-clicking and clicking hide, or you can right-click and hit personalize, and this will actually allow you to add new fields into the system. So if there are things missing that you'd like to see, you can add those in without any use of development or customization. I'm going to go ahead and let this form open up, and I'll show you how easy it is. So what you're seeing is a line grid, so it's talking about this area of the form here. And all you do is click Add Fields, and then you go through the list of tables here and find the specific field that you want. So for this example, we will grab the text field, and we can populate some additional text into the box if we'd like. So as you can see, the product name has now dropped into this form, which is pulled from the text field, and we can add any additional information that we want. So another thing I'd like to point out here is under the line details, you have additional information. One thing is that text box that I just spoke about. The text box is down here, but instead of having to go down to this line details, I've added it here, and you can see that the fields are linked and the verbiage matches up. Beyond that, you can actually have specific delivery addresses per line, and you can sell out of different sites and warehouses per line if you'd like as well. So you can see our site and warehouse is defaulted in from the header, but we can always change that if we'd like. So those are a couple of things I'd like to point out here. And then when we're ready, we can actually simulate prices. From there. So it's pretty easy to move from a quotation, from an opportunity to a quotation, and from a quotation to a sales order. Well, let me go ahead and jump back into my slides. We talked about increased efficiency. We talked about the simple transfer to a quote. And then we're going to go ahead and move into sales orders next. Now let's go to our opportunity here. And we can actually get back to our quote relatively easily from the opportunity. So the nice thing here is that there's that linkage. There's a link between the opportunity and the sales quotations. It'll take us over to the form that we wanted to see. And let's go ahead and open up our sales quote. And this is one that we previously went through, so let's hop back down here. And click through here really quickly. Make sure we got all of our defined and required information. It's all looking good. And let's go back and visit the header as well. So the important thing to note here is the header and the line views. It's important to know that there's differences between the two and that the header information will default down into the line views themselves. Let's just go ahead and take one here. And we'll create a sales quote. It's very easy to create a sales quote without an opportunity, but for the purposes of the sales process, it's important to use the sales link there so that you can track it all the way through from beginning to end. And here I'm just calculating if there's any discounts. So all I did was went to that price calculation field and then actually made sure that I'm getting the right pricing in for this customer for this specific quote. And then it will allow me to actually generate and send the quote. Now what's important to note here is that you can actually print the quotation, you can email the quotation, you can save it as a PDF and email it later on if you'd like. It really just depends on how you typically negotiate and communicate with your customers. Now we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And you'll see the status has been updated to sent for this quote. So once you see this sent piece, you know that you're able to follow up on it. So we've emailed it out, and now our customer is now coming back to us and saying, yeah, the quote looks good. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. So to do that and to get this converted into a sales order, you're going to hit this confirm button. Now what this pop-up is asking is, do we want to update the opportunity that is associated with it? You can see update opportunity ID, so that's that linked opportunity. And we're going to say whether we confirmed this to get the win or if there was another reason that we lost it. And we confirmed for the win. Now when I hit OK, what that does is it actually goes off and updates that linked opportunity to update our sales process. And I'll go back and show you that here in a second. So if we went to visit our sales process for that specific quote and that opportunity, it would actually show us that all those process steps and those stages that we created are completed. It automatically updates those, so it saves you the time and the hassle of having to go back and update them manually. So now we have a confirmed sales quote. From here, it's really easy to get to the sales order that's associated to the sales quote. You just hit the sales order button, and it actually pops open our information here, and we're in the sales order form now. Now this will look very similar to the sales quote form, but as you can see, there's a few more options available as far as processing this order. The nice thing about this is you can actually process a sales order through invoice all from this one form. And that kind of brings me to my next point of talking about the order to cash life cycle. Now, order to cash life cycle is from order inception or quote inception through picking items off the shelf in the warehouse, packing them and shipping them out the door, to the invoice process and customer payment. Now we'll go back into AX and go ahead and process that order the rest of the way. So we're going to go ahead and confirm the order, telling the system that yes, this is actually a firmed order and we're expecting to get the business and ship it out the door. And then from here you have several different options. It really depends on what your setup is of the system. So are you using warehouse management functionality or are you using the simple pick and pack method? We're going to go ahead and assume you're using the simple pick and pack method for this example. And then there's two options. You can actually generate a picking list and register the pick. So that would be someone going off to the warehouse, picking up the goods off the shelf, registering it. If it had a serial number, that's where you'd input the serial number. and then moving it over to the packing area and shipping it out the door. And this packing slip is actually telling the system that we are shipping this out. So we'll pull up the packing slip. If you want, you can do a quick review of the order itself. You can see all the lines that are associated with it. You can actually remove lines if they're not ready to be shipped, and you're only ready to ship a few lines, excuse me. And then you have some other options here. But the really important thing is that you can also choose to either print your packing slip or you can email it out as well. So we've had people in the past who would print one copy and email another copy out, but it's really up to your choice and how your business operates. For this example, we're just going to hit OK to save us some time. And you can go ahead and ship that out the door. From there, we could actually generate the invoice, and then the accounting folks could pick it up and run the customer payment through the system. But again, the important thing to realize here is the order-to-cash life cycle. So how can we go through and optimize each area of this life cycle to make us as efficient as possible? And there's really a lot of different things that you can do from node to node here that will help speed you up. Again, I referenced whether you're using WMS or not, or whether you wanted to use the simple pick and pack method within AX, as well as you can also invoice directly from the sales order form if you'd like, or if you have your accounting folks from the AR system can also pick up that sales order to invoice. And the next thing I'd like to talk about is we at IBIS have expanded on this order-to-cash life cycle, and we actually expanded this on to plan to profit, which we consider a better approach. So with our approach, you are leveraging still the order-to-cash life cycle, but you're adding a little bit of action on the front end and on the back end of this. The front end would be the planning side, sales and operations planning, planning with trade agreements and contracts. Are there any special pricing agreements in place? What does the chargeback situation look like? And then obviously it follows the path of order entry, approval, shipping, invoicing, and customer payments. But on the back side of it, we also realize actual margins, vendor chargebacks, rebates, and a bunch of other functionality. So it's really from beginning to end, we've expanded on this to just really have better analysis and better insight into the business and how we're operating. So that's really all I had to cover today. Are there any specific questions about what I covered, anything I can go back and cover? So I'll go ahead and open that up now, and I just want to revisit our objectives as the questions are coming in. So the first objective was defining the sales process. I think we covered that. We covered how it ties into opportunities. We covered how you can create an opportunity and track it from beginning to end all the way through sales order, invoice, and payment. Optimizing order management. We spoke about utilizing default order fields from the customer and product forms, as well as hiding and personalizing forms to make order entry much easier. We also talked about sales quotes and sales orders and how easy it is to track from opportunity to quote to order. And then we talked about defining the order-to-cash life cycle, as well as how we at IBIS have expanded on that to plan to profit. So here's my contact information. And again, I'm going to open up the questions over to Jason. And Jason, if you could go, please be so kind to moderate those.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Jeremy. Nice work there. And the question queue is open, so please do enter yours now. Anything that you can, would like Jeremy's insight on. Let's see here. First question, what does the salesperson role look like? What forms will he be working in?
The salesperson role, that's really dependent on what your security setup looks like. So it can be as flexible as they can see any form and any button they want, or you can actually limit by security down to seeing only sales orders, sales quotes, and the CRM functions, which would be leads, opportunities, and call lists. So it's really very flexible and really dependent on how your organization is structured.
All right. Can you copy opportunities?
Yes, you can. You can copy previous opportunities, and it's very easy, and it's typically a good idea to use that function because it will populate a lot of the information from your previous opportunities that are there.
All right, and a follow-up to that one, can you copy previous sales quotes?
Yes, you can, and it actually works very similarly, and you can actually just go through and let me see if I can pull up my screen real quick again, Jason, if you can bear with me. Let's go back into AX. And you can see under, we'll go to sales quotes. It looks the same under opportunities and sales quotes. But there's a copy from function here, and it will just basically pull a list of previous quotations, and you can select the one that you want. So it's very easy, very quick to do.
All right, and there's a follow-up to the question on the salesperson role, more of a comment, but just noting that compared to AX4, which I assume this person is familiar with, what you showed looks a lot more complex, and salespeople need a simple view.
So if you remember, I also have system administration rights, so I have access to everything in the entire system. It includes a lot more buttons, features, and functions than a normal salesperson would have. If I had just a simple salesperson role, you would see a lot of the information limited, and you would only have functions that you specifically need.
All right, another question here. Can you turn quotations into trade agreements or in contracts with the advanced supply chain enhancement from I.B.I.S?
Yes, you can. I can't go into too much detail in this forum, but yes, you can.
All right, I'm going to make a last call for questions here, and while we give folks a chance to maybe enter anything else if they're wondering about it, I want to just remind folks there is a survey that will pop up at the end of the session after you close out. Please be on the lookout for that, excuse me. We do really appreciate the feedback about how the session ran, and I know our speakers do as well. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we can begin to wrap up. Jeremy, thanks so much for taking us through all this functionality today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for your time and for joining. My contact information should be displayed, so if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me or call us at I.B.I.S.
I guess that would include getting a copy of the slides. If someone wanted to request that, should they just write to you directly?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, great. So anyone who's wondering about that. And we are recording today's session. We'll be making that available as well. So thanks again for attending. We are going to conclude there. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.